all signs, President Ruto is distressed, but the tough talk will actually cost him more. There is a reminder here that in 1990, following the deadly Sabasaba riot that clamored the multi-party democracy, Moi decided to set up the KANU Review Committee under the chairmanship of Professor George Saitoti. And it was that time that the people were not asking for reforms of KANU party, but they were asking for multi-party democracy. They had rejected the single party rule and they wanted other political parties. That conduct or that decision that was made by Moi in 1990, more than 34 years ago, mirrors the new clamor for debate, the new clamor for talks that President Ruto is asking for. Kenyans were asking very pertinent questions on the bad governance. They asked for the bill to be dropped and also had other issues in it. And so what the people demanded is action, not talks. But how does it mirror? Ladies and gentlemen, the Generation Z and the Kenyans' priority areas concern were even about the unholy alliance between the church and the political class led by the president. And this is the reason why the Kenyan young people are saying we will deplatform the politicians from the church and demanded that the church must stop receiving accepting monetary contributions from the political class, which is not only a manipulative tool, but also proceeds of corruption from governance. And instead, William Ruto failed to read the mood in the House in ordering that, and for the last few days he's been holding delegations of church leaders in Statehouse. Since Wednesday, William Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, hosted church leaders in the last 3 days, including National Council of Churches of Kenya, there was Evangelical Alliance of Kenya, Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops and AIPCA, and they refused to accept President Ruto's intentions in any sort of talk. And I appreciate the discussion and the outright rejection by the people who are saying everything is not right with the talks. And today in Statehouse, this is the speech that the president made. I want you to listen to this bit of that speech by the president.
Na niwaombe hawa vijana wetu tuwaongeleshe. Hawana makosa, ni kukosa namna. Lakini as parents, as leaders, as church leaders, as political leaders, mimi na huyu Wawombi, sote tuungane, tuongelesha hawa vijana, tupange vizuri, ili waelewe we have a plan for them. Na mimi silaumu vijana wa Kenya. And nilisema ya kwamba hawa vijana wamefanya vizuri. Wamekuja, wamesema, tuko na maneno yetu hapa. Na walikuwa wanafanya hivyo kwa utaratibu na amani. Na walikuwa wanafanya hivyo bila ya kuchanganya na mambo ya ukabila, which is very positive. Lakini ndani ya hapo wakaingiliwa na watu wengine. Wale waliochoma bunge sio hawa watoto. Si ndio? Sio watoto hawa wetu. Wale walienda kuchoma bunge ni criminals ambao tutawatafuta. Hawawezi kuhepa, kwa sababu huwezi kuharibu mali ya umma. Tutaongea na vijana wetu. Tuko na mpango ya vijana wetu. Lakini wahalifu, wakora na hawa criminals pia tutawashughulikia. Kulingana na sheria. Hakuna vile mtu anaweza kwenda kuharibu biashara ya mwingine. Kuharibu biashara ya mwingine, kuvunja mali ya umma, kuharibu biashara, kuharibu manyumba ya serikali, kwenda kuchoma CDF office, kwenda kuchoma sijui nini. Hiyo itatusaidia na mambo yetu ya kusuluhisha matatizo ya vijana kwa njia gani? So we must separate the issues our young people are raising and the criminality of those who are looting people's shops, destroying public property. These are very separate issues and we must deal with them as they are. Mimi nitatoa taarifa leo ya kwamba mimi nataka tuongee kama Wakenya. Yes. Mimi nataka nimetoa mpango kuanzia next week. Mimi nataka tukuje tuketi chini. Viongozi wa makanisa, viongozi wa dini, viongozi wa vijana, viongozi wa NGOs, civil society, professional bodies, viongozi wa vijana kutoka university, tuketi chini tuongee vile nchi yetu tutapeleka mbele. Vile mambo ya madeni ya Kenya tutafanya namna gani? Maneno ya ajira kwa vijana wetu wa Kenya tuweke mawazo kwa meza. Yale tumepanga kama serikali, kama haitoshi, tuongezee zile zingine. Tuongee vile pia expenditure ya serikali. Tunalipa mshahara 1.1 trillion ya watu wafanyikazi wa serikali karibu milioni 1. Tukubaliane vile vile mambo ya expenditure ile ingine yote ya serikali. Pia tukubaliane vile tutakabiliana na mambo ya ufisadi. Ndio tupigane na wakora wote. Na tukubaliane yale mambo mengine wa Kenya wataleta kwa meza. Ndio tuweze kutatua matatizo yetu kama watu wa taifa moja kwa maelewano, kwa amani na sio kwa vita na fujo.
Sisi as a church, we have our presiding archbishop, whom we respect very much, whom we support and pray for very much. Kenya, wewe ndio archbishop wetu. Na sisi hatuna archbishop mwingine. You are our archbishop in the political issues, and as a church, we are going to stand with you. We are going to pray for you. We are going to be behind you. And that is the commitment we have made as a church, all of us together, that we are going to offer you prayers and support as you navigate the challenges you encounter during the leadership, as you lead this country. You can be assured of our prayers and support as you lead this nation. And that is why we are here, all of us, to offer you prayers and support as you lead this nation. And Your Excellency, so far so good. You have done so well. Where we found the economy of this country is not where we are. You have done a tremendous job. You have done a good job, and we thank you, and we are going to be behind you, praying for you and offering you support.
The APC Church, and me in particular, wherever you require in the process of feeding this nation when it is in a crisis, we are there for you and we shall support you. Because I know if people don't talk or listen together, even if we destroy what we have, the situation will not improve. I would advise the youth, chairman wangu wa youth, I know there are so many problems that you are going through, you and your generation, and these problems cannot be solved by destroying what we have.
Tough talking, and on one end he's talking about people needs to come together, and on the other end He's talking about all those who attacked the parliament. But one more pertinent question comes up here. Why is the president giving the church the priority on leading that sort of an engagement? And in fact, he is actually dictating the rules of the game. You've said what I want us to talk about, what I want us to talk about. But I think the Kenyans also need a voice on what they want the government, the talks to be centered around. I want to say this. The church was the platform that was used to wink the members of the public. William Ruto's campaign platform in the last year's general election was the church. And now this is the platform, or rather this is the space that is now being used. And why is it that before even meeting any other person, you brought the church on table? There's some 4 questions that Kenyans need to ask about this. Why is it that the president is giving church priority over everyone else? Why? Because he wants to get a compact majority and has created, and if you listen to his tone, he's like, you need to go and talk to the children. The church, why has the church not insisted on joint communication, oral or written statements after this meeting, but allowed the president to decide what to communicate after the meetings at the risk of their views and their positions being misrepresented and integrity soiled? If the meetings were in the spirit of, that reconciliation of addressing the plight of the Gen Z, then why is it that the president is the person leading and issuing the statement? Remember, one of the people that led the church delegation there is Madeira Member of Parliament. The Madeira Member of Parliament, so, and it's actually Mount Kenya. By the way, it's actually Mount Kenya. It is just the famous Mount Kenya church clergy that the president has been using. So there is everything skeptical by it. Then, why can't the church wait for the formal engagements to start so that they can present their views just like the rest of Kenyans? And the president should be reminded that it doesn't really, sometimes it doesn't have to work that way. And there is everything being skeptical by the direction, because you cannot go to that table with such kind. I wanted to listen to, there is a church leader who was speaking in, I think this should be Githurai, and was saying, because the president have now dropped his stand on finance bill, Kenyans need to forget about, needs to stop going to the street to protest, and maybe you need to get this.
Tunaombea mji wetu wa Githurai. Tunatangaza Githurai itakuwa na amani. Githurai haitajulikana na mambo mabaya kwa sababu ya hali taifa letu lipo. Tunajua kwamba Mungu wewe umeingilia kati katika jina la Yesu. Na kwa hivyo tunasema ni asante. Kenya haitachomeka. Kenya haitaangamia katika jina la Yesu Kristo. The president has said that he is not going to sign the bill, which is a good gesture. And we want to ask him, even in the near future, these are measures that should be taken earlier enough. We should not wait up to a moment like this. So we echo him for that, and we support him for that, for not signing the bill. It's a good gesture. That's how a leader should be, to listen to his people. Our request to the people who want to demonstrate tomorrow, and maybe I'll also allow our other leaders to respond on that, is that the president has spoken and he has said he has withdrawn the bill. We also appeal to you, can we also withdraw the demonstration so that we can be able to be all of us in the same page? Let's sit down, let's dialogue for the betterment of our nation. We also appeal for the president and the government to withdraw the army. Kwa sababu hiyo waki-withdraw watakuwa wamefanya vizuri, kwa sababu itapia inua emotions za Wakenya. Na tunashukuru kwa sababu ya jambo kama hilo. Question in our mind is this: did it have to come to this far? Our answer is good as yours. No. We appeal especially to our president to offer leadership at this trying moment. He is up there as a symbol of unity and assure him of our availability and support from the church in making an amicable resolution for the benefit of the nation. We appeal to our police to exercise restraint. These young people speaking against the finance bill are the voices of many Kenyans who need audience because we are living in hard economic times. They are also your children, your brothers, and your sisters. We assure our young people that your voice has been heard, and we echo your voice and note your bravery. Nonetheless, we ask you to be driven, not to be driven by rage or scolds. We trust that you have a vision for the nation of Kenya, and that you need to see a better Kenya tomorrow.
And so, the negotiation or any sort of negotiation should not start from, let us not protest. It should not start from there. And I understand, and sometimes I don't get it, because those who are in power, this finance bill that is in contention, the housing levy and everything that have always been said, there's been a culture of not listening. Those in power have a culture of not listening. They don't want to hear what you are saying. They will go with what they think is right and what they think should be done. And so it's not new. It's not new to the people of this country that those in power are not listening. It's been a culture. There will be a public participation, but 95% of that will not be heard. And having listened to that, I want to read some of the irreducible minimums that was leaked out by Kenyans, that Kenyans asked for. And then you will actually interrogate whether the sort of engagement that the president is asking for will be able to discuss on this. Number one, they are calling for the executive to obey court orders and scrap the illegal and illegitimate Chief Administrative Secretary (CS) position, as well as removal of public funded offices, Office of the First Lady, the Second Lady, Prime Cabinet Secretary spouse, and instead redirect the funds to employing teachers and doctors. I agree. Why should we give money to the office of the Second Lady to do something on some boy child program and drug abuse while we have NACADA that is underfunded? Okay, and if some of these problems are actually bordering unemployment, instead of wasting all that money, why don't we come up with jumpstart programs like what Uhuru Kenyatta did under Cousin Tani? I agree. Point number one. Number two, calls for the scrapping of housing levy, publishing of the audited records on how the funds have been utilized, and refunds for all contributors. Housing levy was one of the most unpopular program that President Ruto rolled out, and even a year after all that, and a year since that deduction started. That deduction only stopped for some 2 months when the case was in court, but the deduction started immediately that bill was passed. And a year after it started, we cannot account for the number of jobs that have been created in it. The list calls for immediate firing of government officials with criminal records and integrity issues, while being advised to constitute IBC within the next 30 days and employ JSS teachers and intern doctors. This also borders something on the teachers and the doctors. And the reason why I took that of IBC serious, because employment of IBC is a matter that has been sitting in NADCO. And we still don't have NADCO because deliberately someone does not want to, we still don't have IBC because deliberately someone doesn't want to implement NADCO. And why are we delaying IBC? We are delaying IBC because there are some elections, some by-elections that are supposed to be done. UDA knows very well the ground is very hostile for them, and they do not want to hold any sort of elections now, because that would be a vote of no confidence. And I can tell you, any part of this country, if a by-election is done, a UDA candidate will lose, because the people will be saying, you have failed us. More demands have been made for the reduction of members of parliament salaries and allowances capped at 200,000. Protesters also insist that MPs should not earn more than doctors, and are calling for the restoration of the school feeding program. Moreover, to curb wastage, the list advises for all government officials should use government vehicles, trains, and aeroplanes, so that we reduce wastage. What are we talking about? There is an overhaul. The government needs overhaul. And most of what is being said here needs policy twists and policy dropping. Tell me, what sort of the talks, what are these talks going to bear that NADCO did not bear? That public participation, what is it going to be said that was not said in public participation? You know, what was it that was not said in public participation? So I think the real thing here is Kenyans must interrogate the areas of talks. And from where I am, what is casting doubts on the success of any talk that the president is talking about is Ruto team are blaming some forces that were behind the protest, and they don't believe that Kenyans had an issue. Yes, they've been on records changing goalposts. At one time, an MP was saying it is being funded by Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. Some other time, another one was saying it is being funded by Russia. Some other time, so and so is saying it's being funded by those within government. So, if there is something that we need to agree is the government has been in denial that Kenyans came out to protest about the issues that were raised in finance bill. And I want to say, with the church being led and taking the center stage in leading this sort of talks, I understand if you've dropped the bill and we are talking about president leading an engagement with talks, someone said there's no talks to be done in Statehouse. Then let's all of us go to Uhuru Park. Let all Kenyans go and talk to Kenyans in Uhuru Park. And in fact, let me tell you, if there is something that can change this country, is just a referendum. Just take a referendum and find out. All these factors, let's table all these factors, then subject them to a referendum. Then we see what goes, what fails. Because the institutions that are there, and I agree with the president, last time when he made a speech, he said the institutions that are there are supposed to make decisions on behalf of the people. But these institutions lack independence. The MPs that are supposed to work are now receiving bribes from the executive, and they are passing bills without question. Any other institution has to get okay from the Statehouse. And that is why the power, what happened was the people taking back their power. The second thing is, if the Kenya Kwanza have failed to implement NADCO, where is the evidence? Or where is the assurance that if there will be any sort of discussion and agreement that is going to be reached, they are going to implement? And lastly, I feel Ruto cannot be silent about human rights violation. That's something I'm going to discuss in my next video. And on the other end, call for talks. I think before we have any sort of talks, we must also ensure that the issues of human rights are on the table. That one I'm going to hold in my next video. And I don't know whether you believe that the talks are going to bear anything. Thank you.